Tyler's a good friend of ours, an amazing musician and educator, dance caller, dancer, and the new executive director of the Crooked Road. So excited to have him here. And also wanted to let y'all know that outside following this, Martha Spencer and friends will be playing music. She'll also be doing a presentation in here later on dance traditions, a cool dance showcase. She'll probably do some dancing outside too, and singing and playing. And following this presentation, Heather Krantz and Chris Powers are going to do a presentation on the history of this art center and the history of the Floyd Country Store, which is also where the Handmade Music School is held. So parts of the exhibits will be discussed during that too. But without further ado, here's Tyler.
All right, thanks, Sophie. Well, I think probably everybody can hear me, so I won't pull this mic up here. But right, so my name is Tyler Hughes, and I am fresh on the job as the new executive director for the Crooked Road. This is like day 14 or 15 for me. So, but I've had a long history with the Crooked Road. I grew up here in Southwest Virginia. I grew up in the coal fields and played music for about 20 years and been involved with the Crooked Road for about 15 of those 20 years as an artist and as an educator and kind of an arts organizer. So I'll play y'all some tunes and talk a little bit about the Crooked Road and how it's come to be and what exactly it is and where it's going and whether or not we're going to straighten it out. So. About the music of Southwest Virginia and Central Appalachia in general is that it is folk music or music from the people and from the communities, and that's been shaped so much by the human experiences that people have had in places like Southwest Virginia or Central Appalachia overall. And those earliest experiences were people traveling, which is what we want folks to do on the Crooked Road today. So at one point, people were traveling to find new lives. They were traveling down what was known as the Great Road, which today we all call Interstate 81, and traveling routes like Route 58 to the west to the original Wild West, still the Wild West in my opinion, in the state of Kentucky. So folks were traveling to places like the Cumberland Gap. Along the way, they were bringing with them their traditions from all across the world. So we had fiddle tunes and ballad traditions from Europe, and the banjo from Africa, and dance traditions from all across Europe and Africa as well, plus meeting the mixture of indigenous culture and arts here in the mountains. And those folks were traveling along and they were creating new pieces of art and new pieces of music as they were doing. And that's where the tune Cumberland Gap comes from. It's detailing that trek that people were making. Well, Cumberland Gap, everybody's heading for the Cumberland Gap. Save my money, gonna buy me a farm and raise sweet taters as long as your arm, long as your arm, long as your arm, raise sweet taters as long as your arm. That we strive for the most, I think, not just at the Crooked Road, but in all of the cultural arts organizations, is to try and really drive home the importance of Southwest Virginia's history and culture and its people. And one of those facts that really drives home that point for me, I think, is thinking about how at one time it was estimated that a third of all the people living in the United States of America could could trace an ancestor back to somebody who passed through the Cumberland Gap. That's how important of a route Southwest Virginia into eastern Kentucky and East Tennessee was. Will work here. I didn't want you to feel like you just had to look at me the whole time, but I didn't want to make a really boring slideshow, so I just wanted to bring some visuals along for some of the folks and some of the things that I'll be talking about. So the Crooked Road started in the year 2004. I'm sure if most of you all are local or have been visiting Floyd for a few days, you recognize what a rich tradition there is of old-time bluegrass music and dance traditions here in Southwest Virginia. Like I said, I grew up in the coal fields down in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, so I saw firsthand as a teenager and a young adult what economic transition looks like as the economy really changed throughout the late 90s and the early 2000s. It left a lot of communities wondering, how will they survive? How will we create new ways for people to make money? And how will we continue to foster a place where folks can raise a family or make a living? And like I said, we really saw that, especially in the coal fields, but all across Southwest Virginia. So there became a lot of interest in economic revitalization and economic diversification. And how do we move the region away from just relying on these one or two industries? So a lot of work was being done in the early 2000s to create a really vibrant tourism economy centered on the traditional arts and culture and music of Southwest Virginia. And thankfully, there were a lot of folks who were really thoughtful about that. Folks like Joe Wilson, and folks at DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, that helped create a lot of these early tourism initiatives like the Crooked Road. They wanted these things to be authentic and a real representation of the people. We didn't want to package up the Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg style of Appalachian tourism and put that on display here in Southwest Virginia. We wanted folks to really experience the realness of our communities. And so the Crooked Road was born in 2004, and it strung together a handful of major venues, much like the Floyd Country Store here, that present old-time or bluegrass music and dance, most of them on a weekly basis. So we have the Carter Family Fold down in Hiltons, Virginia, which this is kind of a wash, I think. the Carter Family Fold down in Hiltons, Virginia, which of course honors the legacy of the Carter family, whose music was not only so impactful to country music, but literally all music, all commercial music that exists in the world today can really be traced back to the 1927 Bristol sessions and the success that groups like the Carter family found here in Central Appalachia. It also connected the Ralph Stanley Museum in Dickinson County, Virginia, a museum honoring Ralph and Carter Stanley and all that they gave to the beginnings of bluegrass music. And it connected major festivals and jams that happen across Southwest Virginia, much like the Gay Lax Old Fiddlers Convention, which we were talking about in the last session, which I think celebrated its 87th year. Today it is known as the longest running music festival in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it connected those dots and has really been working to promote and perpetuate Southwest Virginia's music and culture ever since. And so I'm going to give you some examples of some of the music and some of the folks that are whose work before us really led to this culture and to the efforts to promote this culture as an asset to tourism. So, I mentioned Ralph and Carter Stanley, and the Clinch Mountain Boys. They were an important early group for bluegrass music. And one of my favorite groups, not just because I grew up around that music and grew up near them, but they really kind of cross that divide a lot of times between old-time and bluegrass music. If you play old-time or bluegrass music or you're heavily involved, sometimes they seem like two separate worlds, even though there's so much overlap between the two genres. And I think Ralph and Carter always did a great job of bridging that divide. And one of my favorite aspects about Ralph's music is that it really showcases the beauty of how this culture has come to develop and who has carried this culture and this music for so many generations. So Ralph learned a lot of his early banjo from this lady on the far left here, your all's right, holding that banjo. That's his mother, Lucy Smith Stanley, who was a banjo player and was known for playing dances and pie suppers and community gatherings at a time when it was really not seen as appropriate for women to be out playing music and staying out late in the logging and coal camps of Southwest Virginia. But she didn't let that stop her, and she taught Ralph a whole lot of tunes like this tune here called Shout Little Lula. This is a good dance tune, so if anybody wants to hop up, this looks like a good dance floor in here. Y'all can come on in and take a seat. You're not disturbing us at all. So one of the aspects of music from across Southwest Virginia, and one of the really beautiful things about the Crooked Road and its efforts to promote all of these venues and all of these artists and the music from this region, is it really shows just how diverse the music is. So Ralph Stanley's clawhammer playing is a really unique style of clawhammer that sounds so different from the eastern side of Southwest Virginia. And actually, Jared, I might get you to play a tune a little bit. I just got to thinking about that. You should hop up here. You can do a Well, I'll switch around here. I'm going to grab the guitar. One of our major venues, as I mentioned, is the Carter Family Fold down in Hiltons, Virginia, which is really where I grew up, going to hear a lot of old-time music and play a lot of music. The story of the Carter family is one that's quite extravagant in a lot of ways, but one that's also very humble and not well known in a whole lot of ways too. So the Carter family can trace their roots back in Southwest Virginia for literally hundreds of years. And they grew up in a community in Scott County, or resided in a community in Scott County. Today we just call Hiltons, but they lived in a smaller area outside of Hiltons called Macy Springs. And the original group was formed by A.P. Carter and his wife Sarah, and Sarah's cousin Mabel Carter. And they began performing some in the mid-20s, and their families had a long musical tradition. A.P. Carter's father was a fiddle player, and they had a long tradition of singing in their family. And they had been playing some local shows in the mid-1920s, when in 1927, what we now know as the Big Bang of country music, the Bristol Sessions, took place. A gentleman from up around this area, Pop Stoneman, had been meeting with a record producer from Victor Talking Machine Company named Ralph Peer, and telling him about all the great music that he could find throughout Southwest Virginia. And at that time, in the late 20s, there was just an extreme interest in music from rural areas. Oftentimes it was categorized as hillbilly music, really before we used the term country music. And so Ralph Peer set up shop in Bristol, there on the Tennessee-Virginia border, and set up for a few days there in early August and invited groups from all over. And a handful of groups really saw great success, and one of those was the Carter family. And you can't really overstate the importance of the Carter family. They are probably one of the most well-known groups from Southwest Virginia and Central Appalachia, but with good reason. Their music today, most of those songs that you go out here and you listen to people jamming, or if you go to the jam at the country store, or really anywhere across the United States where they're playing old-time music, a lot of those songs can be traced back to early recordings of the Carter family. Country music probably wouldn't really exist the way that it does without songs like The Wildwood Flower, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, a lot of early Carter family pieces. So I'm going to do you one here called Longing for Old Virginia and try to play a little bit in the style that they played in. The Carter family is well known for their recording success. They recorded over 300 songs in around 15 years or so throughout the 1920s and 30s. But they really broke the mold too on music, especially Maybelle Carter. She was known for her instrumentalism, especially on the guitar. She was heavily influenced by an African-American musician named Leslie Riddle, who was originally from North Carolina and lived just across the border in Kingsport, Tennessee. But Maybelle Carter developed her own style of guitar playing at a time when guitar playing was really focused heavily on bass runs and backup for fiddle tunes. She really tried to develop a guitar style that focused on the melody and the bass at the same time, and it became known as the Carter Scratch and been emulated for literally almost 100 years now ever since. So I'll play a little bit of Longing for Old Virginia. Amid the green fields of Virginia, dear, I met you. When the roses red, white around us bloom. When I held you in my arms and gently kissed you, the robin sang the sweetest song he knew. I am longing for old Virginia, and you. And I'm hoping the soul within ya is longing for me too. Virginia, just like the ivy, my heart clings ever true. And I reckon in the spring I'll bring a little ring to old Virginia and you. Though tonight I'm far from you in old Virginia, loved you as I did that day in June. And when springtime comes again to old Virginia, I'll build a little cottage just for two. I am longing for old Virginia, and you. And I'm hoping the soul within ya is longing for me too. To Virginia, just like the ivy, my heart clings ever true. And I reckon in the spring I'll bring a little ring to old Virginia and you. And I reckon in the spring I'll bring a little ring to old Virginia and you. Get this come back on. Maybe this will help kind of keep me on track here. I want to watch the time. Well, I knew better than to try and mash technology with 100-year-old music. That's all right. Well, we'll keep trekking here. I'll talk a little bit more, and then if anybody would like to ask some questions, we're here to chat, so I always love to meet folks too. But as I was saying, the Crooked Road really is trying to promote these venues to the outside world, but also because we recognize they have such an importance to the communities of Southwest Virginia. So it's not just about earning tourism dollars. It's not just about tax revenue. All that's very important. I can personally attest to that. I serve in local government in Southwest Virginia, so I know how important it is to have a strong economy. But the Crooked Road's mission really extends beyond that, to preserve the culture, because we know how important it is, literally just to human existence, to be able to take part in things like we did last night at the Friday Night Jamboree, to get up and dance with your neighbors and to hear music and see this culture live and thrive. So I'll point out a couple more of these pictures here and then move along. Jared, would you want to get up and play a banjo to me? I'll play guitar with you. We've got our current artist in residence here this morning, so we should showcase him as well. But As I said, the Crooked Road features 10 major music venues across Southwest Virginia. The trail is over 330 miles completely. So it's over 330 miles. It stretches from Rocky Mountain, Virginia, and the Ferrum area where the Blue Ridge Institute is, all the way to Clintwood, Virginia. So really, we expand to cover all 19 counties of Southwest Virginia. So there may be jams or music festivals that are taking place in counties north of where the trail actually runs, which is mainly Route 58 through the southern part of Southwest Virginia. And together that makes up almost 60 affiliate venues. And those affiliate venues are anything from weekly jams like the Jam in Chilhowie, or the Handmade Music School here in Floyd, to the Trail of the Lonesome Pine, that center picture there in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, which just celebrated its 60th anniversary as the state outdoor drama, to larger festivals like the Hills of Home Festival that celebrates Ralph Stanley and Carter Stanley and the music of Dickinson County, or the Carter Family Fold Festival, which takes place in early August, celebrating those Bristol sessions we were talking about. And the Crooked Road has changed its focus some over the years, or expanded its focus, I should say. And that's really where my association with the program became really strong. About 10 years ago, I was serving on the board as an artist member and became heavily involved with the educational aspect of the organization. We really expanded to create our own curriculum that can be used in the Virginia standards of learning, so it can be used in public schools to teach about traditional music and traditional dance in the public school system. And we still have that curriculum being offered today. And then currently we do a lot of support work for the Junior Appalachian Musicians Program. I'm really fortunate. I serve on the board of directors for Jam Inc. and have been involved in jam programs all across Southwest Virginia as an instructor and as a coordinator, and can really attest firsthand to just how important those programs are. So I encourage you, if you're looking for somewhere to support, especially monetarily, I encourage you to give to your local jam program. I think Jared can also attest to just how important those programs are and what an impact they have. If you're not familiar with jam, typically it follows the model of an after-school music program, usually set up somewhere in the community, sometimes at the school, sometimes at a community center. We've set them up literally all over the place. And they're made to be incredibly accessible and affordable to students of Southwest Virginia. We recognize that so many folks in Southwest Virginia have a lot of economic barriers when it comes to even accessing their own culture and their own music. So, for instance, the one that I've been worked closely with in Big Stone Gap, we've been able to provide an instrument for every student that wants a banjo, guitar, or fiddle every semester. And we have a really robust scholarship program where almost 90% of the students come for free for the entire semester. And they take a weekly lesson in banjo, fiddle, or guitar music. And then we also do a lot of enrichment programs with them. So we talk about other aspects of Appalachian culture, from food preservation to handicrafts to dance. We do a lot of square dancing with them and things of that nature. So we do work closely with them. And then our work has expanded to try and do more direct impact to artists. And one of those programs that we created just a couple of years ago was the Artist in Residence. And we're really lucky to have our current Artist in Residence here, Jared Boyd, who's coming off of some hot wins at Galax, where he won first in banjo and best overall performer. So definitely want to showcase him. Maybe he can play us a couple of tunes, and then if folks have questions.
That's not what it's all about. I'll just tell you, it's fun to be able to get up on stage and do that. But I know a lot of musicians, good friends, that they go across the stage and play the money back blues, because there's this thing where you go across the stage and get your admission fee back. So some people, it doesn't matter if they think they have the chance at the Blue Ribbon or not, they just want to get across the stage and get a little bit of the money back, because, like Tyler would attest to, a lot of the musicians around here aren't extremely well off, and so get just something as simple as getting their admission fee back is pretty important to them. Can you see?
Yeah,
I guess
that sounds good.
since I'm here. Tyler was talking about the jam program, and actually I learned through the jam program myself. Now I do have the music in my blood, but definitely the jam program helped actually to take less formal lessons from somebody who actually knew how to teach me to play an instrument. My grandfather is also a choir banjo player, Jimmy Floyd. He probably could have showed me some stuff, but I doubt he would have been an extremely good teacher. And there's a difference, you know. You can be an extremely good musician, but not a great teacher. You can also be an extremely great teacher and maybe not a blue ribbon winning musician. Gonna play a tune here. And honestly, the style of playing that I play and that my grandfather played is very rhythmic, frailing, driving style. Honestly not too terribly different from like Ralph's style. But definitely a lot of people have gotten away from that sort of style to a more melodic. But here's a tune that was named after a place down the road between here and Franklin County called Shooting Creek.
It's always tough to put banjo in your hands that you're not familiar with. The tuning is always tricky. Well, while Jared's finishing tuning, I'll say a little bit more about the Artist in Residence program. So the Crooked Road works to directly support this artist for the entire year. So we pay them to be our Artist in Residence, which we really think is one of the most important aspects of our work. Especially since I've come on the job, I've worked as an independent musician off and on for the last 15 years. Most of that time full-time as a musician. So we know how important it is to pay people for their art and for their music. And really, I'm coming to this job with a wide lens. I know how important tourism is to Southwest Virginia, but really at the Crooked Road, we believe that the most important thing we can do is directly support venues and artists and send them out into the world. Our best brochures are our musicians who are out on stages across the Commonwealth or across the country and inviting people back to Southwest Virginia to see just what great community activities we have, like this festival here today, or like the Jamboree, or really any of the venues across the Crooked Road.
All right, here's one called Shooting Creek.
Jared's going to be out over the next few months doing some performances and working with some other educational components of the Crooked Road. And really, we just want to show off his skills. You can tell what a talented player and great person he is already. So we really just want to help support him and the music that he's making. He's a member of the Twin Creeks String Band. It's such a hard one to say, but a great band from around here in this part of Southwest Virginia. So we'll have him out playing. And I'll go ahead and make mention. A lot of people think, where's the Crooked Road heading? You're turning 20 years old next year, so where are we going? Well, we're still going to be here supporting music. And to really get ready and build some momentum around that, we're going to be kicking off our 20th anniversary with a new logo unveiling in mid-September, September 13th. All of y'all are invited, so put this in your phones right now or write this down. It's a free event at the Southwest Virginia Cultural Center and Marketplace off of Exit 14 in Abingdon. It's the Southwest Virginia Visitor Center there in Abingdon. It'll be at 6:30 p.m. We're going to be unveiling the new logo, celebrating all the work that we've done over the last 20 years and announcing some great shows and really just getting ready to party with old time and bluegrass music over the next year and announce some upcoming events. And Jared's going to be there picking Eddie Vaughn, the New Ballards branch bog trotters are also going to be playing. And we've also got several luthiers that are going to have their work on display. So come down if you're looking for a new guitar or banjo, you might be able to find it there. And we'll also be featuring some performers from across Southwest Virginia's Junior Appalachian Musicians program. So showcasing what we've done and where we're headed with the future. So you got a question?
I do. Would you say that date again?
Sure, it's September 13th.
Thank you.
At 6:30 p.m. It's a free event. Come hang out with us. We'll unveil the logo and you'll hear some good music. And hopefully there'll be some dancing. There might even be an impromptu square dance. You never know.
What is it with old time bands and tongue twister?
They're all like that. It seems like.
All right, here's the I guess I call it the Blue Ribbon tune. Fly around Susan and Gal. The funny thing about that is when you learn it, it's fairly simple tune, the basics of it. When you learn it in the jam program, it's called Fly Around. When you get a little bit, when you get to where you can make it a little fancier and play in the competition, you don't feel. You want to give it a different name than the tune, like the second tune you learned ever, just to make it sound not like a beginner tune. Here's Susan and a Gal or Fly Around from Western Country. Old time tunes also have a gazillion names. Still smells fresh. I was smelling something the whole time. I was just like, it's bound to be from like something outside or something.
It's just that new banjo smell. All right, thanks, Jerry. How about another round of applause? That's our current artist. So we talked a little bit about what the Crooked Road honors and what our main goals are. Does anybody have any questions about the music or about the venues or anything of that nature? Yes.
Are you going to be doing this performance again today? I have friends in the park, and I walked in here and I hear you, and I would love for them to hear it. Is it possible that's going to happen?
Unfortunately not. I'm going to have to head right out to Bristol. They keep me hot on the road since I took this job, so I'll be leaving here right at 12 o'clock to head to Bristol for another event. But you can find similar information online at crookedroadva.com, or we are a partner organization with Friends of Southwest Virginia. If you've been visiting, you've probably seen the SWVA logos around. If you head over to their website, they host a lot of videos that have a lot of similar information in them and some similar performances for sure.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, thank you.
Question for you.
Yes, do you have a question?
Was that claw hammer technique?
Yes.
Last one.
Yeah, so that's the claw hammer banjo. Wherever you travel across the Appalachian region, and even here in Southwest Virginia, it gets a lot of different names. So some folks call it crayolin. I know when you get over into eastern Kentucky, some folks call that overhand banjo, but primarily we consider it claw hammer banjo. And then, of course, the other prominent style that you'll find a lot in Southwest Virginia is the modern three-finger scrug style. It's very exciting. And I should say, along those lines, that's really the scope of our mission. The Crooked Road is really here to promote very strictly traditional old-time and bluegrass music. So we don't really venture into other genres or festivals or venues that may be showcasing blues music or singer-songwriter music or rock music or anything like that. We really want to focus very strictly on the music that has been created and lived and thrives here today, what's really helped make a really unique Appalachian culture here. So, do you have a question?
Most of you guys, did you learn through school, like notes and all that stuff, or did you learn like here, like here?
I would say for me it's a little bit of both. So I started taking music lessons when I was a teenager. Like a lot of folks in the Appalachian region, I had people in my family that played music. I presume they played bluegrass, they played banjos and mandolins and guitars, but I never met them. They were all deceased. They were my great uncles that had all passed away before I was born. So I started taking lessons at a local music store, but I was really fortunate to attend a camp called Mountain Music School that takes place at Mountain Empire Community College. And it was through there that I got introduced really to the wider community of old-time music. I met folks like Papa Joe Smitty and Emily Spencer and the White Top Mountain Band and the Sheets family and so many folks that have either lived or played around here in Southwest Virginia. And that's one of the best aspects, I think, about old-time and bluegrass music is really the community and the culture around it. I think Ben and Jared and I, everybody IN can talk about, you know, when you want to learn something from somebody, there's not a lot of gatekeeping. There's not a lot of protectiveness. It's really a community-oriented music. As hopefully if any of y'all were at the store last night, you saw just how easy it was for people to get up on the floor and dance and take part in this culture. And that's something we really want to showcase as part of the Crooked Road. This is not a music that you have to have some sort of formal training or a certificate or a piece of paper to take part in. This is real culture and real music that anybody, regardless of whether you grew up in it or not, can take part in. Yes?
I've been mystified for years by the term Carter scratch. I don't hear much scratching there. Is it just a really bad name, or am I missing something?
I think, I'm no definitive expert on it, but I think the scratch term comes from the fact that Maybelle was typically picking out melody and bass notes with her thumb, and her finger, or her fingernail, was scratching, or doing a scratching motion across the treble string. And that's really the same style that she took and developed for her melody picking on the auto harp. That's another really important piece of the music and culture that I think I would point out, especially from the Crooked Road's perspective, is that this music, while it lives and thrives here in Southwest Virginia and Central Appalachia, the impact that it's had on world music can't be overstated, for sure. The styles of performance or the songs that we sing or the dances that have been created here, you can go anywhere in the world and seek out these kind of communities and find examples of them or examples that can be traced back to here. So that's a little bit about the Carter scratch. I hope that answers your question. Does anybody else have any other questions? Maybe we'll play one more and then yes?
It seems like you talked almost interchangeable. No, you did not interchangeable. Old time and bluegrass. Give us 30 seconds of old time, 30 seconds of bluegrass, so we know the difference.
Do we have 30 days? 30 seconds on the difference between old time and bluegrass music. Gosh, I hope we're not recording. I could be like grilled for this, I'm sure. I would say
Old time music's older.
old time music's older, bluegrass music's newer. That's the best way to put it. Obviously, they both, if you think of them as branches on the same tree, they're coming from the same roots. They come from really diverse backgrounds. Old-time bluegrass music, the culture of Southwest Virginia and Appalachia, it really is a microcosm of American culture. We know we live in a melting pot nation where folks have come from all over the world, and indigenous cultures that existed here, they've all mixed together and created these really unique microcultures all across the United States. And that's really what's happened here in Southwest Virginia, and the prime example lies in our music. Old-time music is really, I would say, dance music heavy most of the time, so it really centers on traditional fiddle tunes and strong rhythmic banjo and guitar playing. You heard both of those tunes that I was playing with Jared. I was putting in lots of bass runs. There's lots of that hard driving downbeat so that folks can dance to that music. But that's not the whole picture for old-time music. There's a long tradition of songs and singing songs and balladry that has taken place. It really captures a lot of stories and pushes them on into the future through that. Bluegrass music, like I said, it's a much newer music. A lot of folks don't think of bluegrass as being a new music, but it's really one of the most modern genres of music. It was just created. It's not even 100 years old. You can really trace its roots back to the late 30s, mid to late 30s, I guess you could say. And it really took a lot of old-time tunes and instrumentation and kind of ratcheted it up a little bit. So everybody, I'm sure, if you're a bluegrass fan, you know about Bill Monroe and the work that so many of those early pioneers did, like Ralph and Carter Stanley or Flatt and Scruggs or Jim and Jesse. They're taking a lot of tunes and a lot of themes that are in old-time music, and they're pitching them up in higher keys, and they're stacking harmonies, and of course, there's some stylistic differences in the playing. There's a lot of differences in the fiddle playing and the guitar playing, and the banjo playing is one of the easiest to see. Most, not all the time, you'll see old-time players are playing the clawhammer style, and most, but not all the time, you'll see bluegrass players are playing the three-finger Earl Scruggs kind of sound. So those are your main differences. Excuse me. And a lot of people think of bluegrass music as more performance-oriented, whereas old-time music is maybe more dance-oriented or community gathering-oriented. So that's as close as I can get without getting in trouble. Thank you. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I'll play one more tune here. I brought the auto part, so I guess I would have played it, and then I'll skedaddle here. But if you do want more information, excuse me, I encourage you to hop online. We're about to redesign our website, so you'll see our website is not always the most user-friendly, but it will be very soon. And one of the easiest ways to keep up with us, is through social media on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us there at crookedroad.pa, and we'll be posting updates of everything that's going on here. So I'll play one more tune here on the auto harp. I always love to bring out the auto harp. It's an interesting instrument, and it's very underrated in my personal opinion. It gets a bad reputation for being an easy instrument. All you have to do is hold down a button and you get a really nice chord sound. But Southwest Virginia has been home to some of the most intricate auto harp players in the world, truly. So Kilby Snow from Independence had his own incredibly unique style of melody picking on the auto harp. Pop Stoneman was another one of those early pioneers of old-time and bluegrass and country music. And then, of course, Maybelle Carter from down in my neck of the woods, Scott County, Virginia, in the Coalfields area. She really took the auto harp to new heights, and that's where most people recognize the auto harp from, is when she really got out in the folk circuit in the 60s and 70s, and traveling around with the Johnny Cash show and playing. So I'll play a tune that she played often on the auto harp called the Black Mountain Rag, and she used that Carter scratch. Yes.
Who made your auto harp?
This is an Orthe. This is a George Orthe made this auto harp. He was an auto harp builder in central Pennsylvania. He was really good friends with the Carters and the Seegers and the Stonemans. So yeah, he's unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but this is an Orthe auto. But as I was saying, the auto harp, a lot of people think of it as an easy rhythm instrument. Play the rhythm quite easily, but folks like Maybelle Carter really took it up a notch and tried to play the melody on it to some of these fiddle tunes that we like to play around here. So I'll play the Black Mountain Rag. thank you all so much. I really appreciate you sticking around and listening to me chat and play some tunes. I'd love to meet you all and talk more about the music or about the Crooked Road. And really do invite you to get out and experience other communities that are along the Crooked Road. So, of course, check out the Floyd Country Store. There are many, many opportunities to hear music and dance across Southwest Virginia. So get out there and do it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.